Hello, Rita.
Hi, Pam. Hello, everyone. It is the time again of the week of our midday musing. Welcome. I believe this is our sixth episode, and we've been together for 6 weeks now, and that's
Wow.
amazing. Thank you, everyone, for all your comments, encouragements, and likes. And we really feel encouraged. I appreciate all the messages that you've sent us, just encouraging us. And this has been really good. The
Yeah.
past few weeks we were talking about leadership and habits, right? So I believe we'll continue talking about habits.
Okay.
But, there's so many habits we need to talk about. I know
Uh-huh.
last week we talked about the power of encouragement, daily giving encouragement to people. So I was wondering today we could talk about the habit of practicing everyday gratitude. What
Okay.
do you think?
Yeah, I think gratitude is a great daily habit.
Yeah, and I think we can never have less of it. So why don't you, the research scholar, go ahead and tell us the definition for gratitude?
Okay. Well, in one of my classes, I'm actually teaching from this book, Living into Community, and it talks about four different practices that a healthy community has. And guess what? The first one is grateful hearts. So I'm
Okay,
going to get the definition from Christine Pohl. Okay.
tell us.
He says the word gratitude comes from the Latin gratia. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it in Latin, but which means grace or graciousness. So the Greek grace, charis, and thankfulness, thanksgiving or gratitude share the same root. So what she says is God is the essence of grace.
Hmm.
And when we're connected with God's grace, gratitude just overflows. So it's together, you know.
Right, right. Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
To hear, I know that lots of people talk about gratitude these days, and many of the successful leaders, I believe, actually practice. It's almost like a secret weapon to have
Yeah.
because it's so much of science, research, and just even ancient wisdom and
Sure.
scriptures that talk about this practice of gratitude, right? And how practicing gratitude is what will keep you joyful and happy and having a sense of wellness around you.
Right.
What would you say as leaders, since we're talking about leadership, is the opposite of gratitude? Like what kills the gratitude?
It's something called entitlement.
Mm,
Yeah, which is quite interesting, you know.
yes. And what would you say the definition for entitlement?
Okay, so I'll just quote it from her book.
Okay.
She says, while there is a healthy interpretation of entitlement that is tied to a sense of dignity and equality, when it's exaggerated, it brings continual dissatisfaction and an inability to be thankful for anything. So, what she's saying is when you feel entitled, obviously there's, good entitlement where you have your own dignity and you feel entitlement for people to treat you a certain way, fine. But when it's exaggerated, then it kills the ability to be grateful. So I think that is one opposing force against us being grateful. Do you
Wow.
agree? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a fine line though, because this term entitlement, even though it has some positive aspects to it, like you said, it gives you the dignity and but if you overuse it or exaggerate it,
Yeah.
then you actually become ungrateful, or it's the opposite of gratitude, right? Because it kills gratitude.
Yeah.
And so I believe as leaders, I don't know, what are some things I'm thinking that would go against us. How can we know the difference between feeling entitled
Hmm.
and then practicing gratitude?
There's a scripture that talks about how we have to be grateful always,
Hmm. Yeah.
thanks in all circumstances.
Yes.
And that was a lesson that God taught me when I was a missionary in India. And I know both of us had a chance to serve the churches in India. And I
That's right.
remember going to India, and I grew up in Chicago, so I've never had a power outage for just every single day. I hadn't experienced that we don't get water 24 hours.
Right.
hot and cold water at choice.
Yeah.
So when I went to India, I felt I had that as a basic right. I thought that's my right to have water and power. And I
Right.
remember in my first house, the power just went off randomly, and I had an electric stove, and I could not get my morning coffee. And I remember this sister walking in, and she was like, why are you so sad?" And she said, "I'm like, I had a hard morning. I had my coffee." And so she just went outside, put 3 stones, boiled water, almost like a campfire, made me coffee. And she said, "You know, there's a time that there's power in the house. It's actually early morning at 5. And at that time, we make sure we pump so there's water in our tank. And then we fill our buckets. And we're just so grateful that we have that."
That is so true. And you're right. Having lived both in the eastern part of the world and the western part of the world, I see the difference.
Yeah.
I see how uh, you actually have a lot of poorer people living in most of the eastern part of the world, and they seem to have a lot more joy and
Yeah.
a lot more gratitude compared
Right.
to us here
Yeah.
who get used to all of these things. It reminds me of that quote from Brené Brown. It says that what separates privilege from entitlement is gratitude.
Wow.
And
So
I think
true though.
a
Yeah.
lot of us, and especially us who try, who are leaders or who are leading some sort of people or person,
Yeah.
we kind of, we don't look at it as a privilege, right? We really think of it as our right.
Right.
And I think that's when it becomes an entitlement.
Yeah.
Learning to be grateful for the smallest things in life.
Yeah.
I think I know the science has backed now. It says that, there's a saying that when you practice gratitude,
Mhm.
there's the brain chemicals, dopamine and serotonin. These are neurotransmitters, right? And they are the ones who are responsible for keeping you happy and joyful.
Yeah.
And so the more you practice gratitude,
Yeah.
I believe the more happy and peaceful you can be. Like, how would it look like if you have to practice it every day?
Yeah. I think if you tell me what is the biggest lesson you learned from living as a missionary, I,
Mm-hmm.
I would sum it up to gratitude. God's grace to us is just so amazing. So for me, a daily practice is, do we connect with God's grace?
Mm,
Like for me, as I mentioned in other previous episodes, just that whole morning practice of sitting down and writing down, what am I really grateful for? And then another practice that my husband and I just started is, even before we go to bed, looking through every experience that day and being grateful for the people in
mm,
our lives. And even if they shared something, really intimate, we're so grateful for that, because they allowed us into their world. Because
right.
as leaders, we get people reaching out to us and wanting to be with us, and what a blessing that is. So being grateful for it rather than a burden, that's a daily practice that I feel like makes me go to bed and have some good sound sleep rather than
Right.
feeling overwhelmed.
And it is scientifically proved that people who are grateful actually sleep better.
I,
Uh,
I totally agree with that.
Restful.
Rather than sleeping with all the burdens of people.
That's right. But you're right. As leaders, people trust us. They have entrusted us with their secrets or their sadness or their happiness or just their lives, right? And we hold space for so many people every single day without even realizing it is a privilege that we can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
And especially if you've been a leader for a long time, you get so used to that you think that it's almost your right. Like people will have to, I'm so awesome that you just have to come to me. Or
Yeah.
we don't look at it as, yeah, we don't look at it as, wow, it's such a blessing that,
Yeah.
God can actually use me that way,
Right.
right? See, for me, I think, that passage that the scripture talks about gratitude, how does gratitude feel like? It's like an overflow.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think is it Psalms 23 that talks about
Talking
uh
about when the Lord anoints your head with oil and my cup overflows.
that's it.
Yes.
So I think if we can use that as a reference point in our lives,
Yeah.
if our cup is overflowing, like you talked about grace, we are so grateful for even the little things like hot water or, power, like regular power. Like I speak to my mom every week and she has 5 power cuts in a day.
Oh,
And so
yeah. Yeah.
that makes me grateful.
Yeah.
Those little things, and for people or for situations, even situations that try us,
Yeah.
I believe we can actually function from that level of overflow.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then I believe that that will actually keep us happy as people.
Absolutely.
Because a cup that is overflowing feels better
Yeah.
compared to a cup that is empty
Yeah.
or even half full.
Yeah. So
And
true. So true. So I think that's a great topic you picked today, just the daily habit of gratitude. So, Rita, what do you think our takeaway is?
one of the habits that I think maybe we're already doing it, and it's something that we can actually include if we're not doing it, is creating a time to practice daily gratitude,
Yep.
right? I know that you said you write things down. I don't always write things down. So what I do is before I go to bed, I think of 3 things that I'm grateful for, right? So having a practice every single day, try it. If you haven't tried it, if you're around people or if people think you're grumpy or you're unhappy or you're sad or you're too strict or whatever, try practicing gratitude
Yeah.
even for the littlest of things, right? And I think that's a good challenge. And I think that's a good takeaway because most successful people
Yeah.
or leaders practice daily gratitude. And I believe that is the key for us to be effective and, evolving leaders and happy leaders. Because at the end of the day, who wants to follow an unhappy leader?
So true. That's so true. So gratitude is a secret, huh?
It is a secret, and I want to follow. I'm not very good at it, but I've learned in the past few years, ever since I got sick, it taught me to be grateful for even the littlest things. And so I try to practice it now, and I know I still need to go a long way in
Yeah.
making sure it's consistent, but
Yeah.
I've realized now the value of it. So I'm glad that, we through these little talks can add value to our viewers and all those awesome leaders out there. If
Yeah.
any of you guys have some incredible ideas on how you practice this daily gratitude, please let us know, write on the comments so we can all learn from each other. Because I believe this is such a great habit to cultivate and to continue if we want to be effective people in our lives.
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan. So we will sign off and I will see you next Monday.
Next Monday, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, bye everyone.